Welcome, everyone. We are so glad to have you here. I want to give a massive shout out to all the C9 followers tuning in, and especially to the Australian business owners and C-level executives who are joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. A huge welcome to all of you. We know you've got a lot on your plates right now.
For sure. So I'm Lex,
And I'm Vera.
and we are hosting the C9 podcast show. So look, we know the environment you're operating in today is, well, it's demanding, to put it lightly. You're dealing with, skyrocketing operational costs and this relentless demand from customers for just flawless experiences.
Right. And on top of all that, you've got this incredibly heavy, rusty anchor of outdated legacy systems just dragging you down.
Exactly. So today, our mission for this deep dive is to basically give you a shortcut through all that complexity. We're going to talk about how you actually make an effective decision when it comes to technology.
Yeah, because we've got an amazing stack of sources to unpack today. It's a comprehensive case study roundup from C9 looking at real-world custom software transformations.
Right. And we're going to break this down using a really clear 5-step framework. So we're talking about first, classifying the problem, then defining the problem. Third is specifying the answer. Fourth, deciding what is right. And finally, carrying out the decision.
It's a fantastic framework because, before you can build a new solution, you actually have to accurately identify where the structural pain is coming from in your business.
Yeah, and that brings us to step one, classifying the problem. Imagine you're doing this massive multi-million-dollar home renovation, right? But instead of actually fixing the structural damage, you take 80% of your budget and just buy buckets to put under a leaky roof.
Wow, that's a brilliant way to put it.
Right, because you aren't building a house anymore. You're just funding a disaster management project. And that is exactly what's happening out there.
It really is. I mean, it's the ultimate innovation killer. The statistics show that a staggering 60 to 80% of an IT budget is often swallowed up just maintaining legacy systems.
80%? That's insane.
It is. And when you're spending that much on maintenance, there is absolutely zero capital or, operational energy left to build for the future. You are literally just bailing water to keep the ship afloat.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here, because I totally get the executive mindset. If you're already spending all that money just to bail water, how on earth does a CFO justify the massive upfront cost of, like, building a custom boat from scratch?
Right, the sticker shock is real.
Yeah. It feels like asking a drowning man to buy a shipyard. I mean, isn't buying a generic off-the-shelf software cheaper and easier? Isn't it at least a fast life raft?
Well, see, that leads us right into step 2, defining the problem. Because that off-the-shelf software, it looks like a life raft, but it often turns out to be made of lead, especially in the Australian context.
Okay, wait, why specifically in Australia?
Because of the unique operational bottlenecks here, generic software severely falls short because of things like scale and geography. You're often trying to coordinate operations from, say, a high-rise in Brisbane all the way to a remote mine site in Perth.
Oh, right.
Generic out-of-the-box software just isn't built to handle that kind of dispersed, offline-capable complexity.
Because, I mean, it's usually built in Silicon Valley.
Right.
But totally different, highly dense operational environment.
Exactly. And second, you've got incredibly strict national compliance requirements. Think about the Privacy Act 1988.
Right, onshore data storage.
Exactly. Generic software is often hosted overseas, and it might not inherently comply with the rigid ways Australian data needs to be stored and encrypted onshore.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then finally, you get massive data silos. You buy an off-the-shelf HR tool, a separate logistics tool, a separate CRM, and none of them talk to each other.
Which means your team is just manually copying and pasting data between them. And the C9 case studies really highlight how destructive that gets. Like PubTech, right? The guy's handling operations for third-place hospitality.
Yes, the PubTech case is fascinating.
They're trying to manage national KPIs using shared Excel spreadsheets.
Oh, it's terrifying mechanically. When you have teams across multiple time zones trying to update a single static file, you just run into endless concurrent editing conflicts.
Right, and broken macros. You end up with a file named like dashboard underscore final underscore version 7 underscore do not touch h.xlsx.
Exactly. And that completely destroys data integrity. You don't have a national dashboard at that point. You just have a national guessing game.
Which is a disaster.
Yeah.
And we see the same red flags in the SES portal case study, too. That's Specialist Electrical Solutions.
Oh, yeah. They were relying on manual timesheets, manual roster day off tracking, manual financial recording.
And the hidden cost there isn't just, buying paper. It's a latency.
Precisely. It took hours to process all that paperwork, which significantly delayed their profit and loss insights.
So they were basically flying blind.
Pretty much. By the time the executives actually got the data, it was already stale. And you cannot steer a modern enterprise if your instruments are showing you a map from 3 weeks ago. Stale data is just a direct threat to revenue.
Okay, so once you as an executive correctly diagnose that, your legacy setup is basically a Jenga tower, and that an off-the-shelf solution is just going to create isolated data silos, how do you actually architect the bridge?
Well, that's step 3, specifying the answer to the problem. Because moving from we have a problem to here is the exact technical solution shouldn't be a leap of faith. It needs to be a calculated blueprint.
Right. And the sources point out that C9's methodology is incredibly collaborative here.
Exactly. It's never about just jumping on the latest flashy tech trend. It's about deeply understanding those unique requirements and operational bottlenecks before you even think about selecting programming languages.
You have to match the tools to the physics of the problem.
That's a great way to say it, yes.
And looking at the specific tech stack C9 uses is really interesting. They heavily prioritize .NET and C# for the backend. And then tools like React, or React Native, and Xamarin for the front end and mobile experiences, all hosted on Azure or AWS.
Right, and it's vital to understand why they choose those specific tools. .NET isn't just an arbitrary preference, it's heavily compiled and strongly typed.
Meaning the system actually catches its own errors before the software is even deployed.
Yes. It provides this deep level of memory management and enterprise-grade back-end security that Australian businesses absolutely need. Plus, it hooks seamlessly into existing Windows Server environments.
Which a lot of established businesses have relied on for decades.
Exactly. So you don't have to just rip and replace everything. You can build secure API bridges to the legacy data.
Wow, okay. And then on the mobile side, they use React and Xamarin.
Yeah.
And the mechanics of cross-platform development there totally change the cost equation, don't they?
Oh, completely. In the past, if you wanted a mobile app, you had to build it in Swift for Apple and then start completely from scratch in Java for Android.
Double the time, double the bugs.
Right. But a framework like Xamarin or React Native lets developers write the core business logic once and deploy it natively to both iOS and Android. It saves immense time and capital.
Which perfectly addresses that executive pushback about the high upfront cost of custom software.
Exactly.
And we really see this specific architecture shine in the One School global case study. They needed a national transportation management system because their basic GPS tracking it wasn't cutting it for coordinating multi-campus transport safely.
And when you're dealing with student logistics across Australia, the safety margin for error is absolute zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
Totally. So C9 built this fully integrated national platform. It had an in-vehicle tablet app for the drivers, a parent mobile app, and a web admin console. And they built it all using .NET Core, React, Xamarin, and the Google Maps API.
It's a massive scale solution.
It really is.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, looking across all these different sources, whether it's transport or health or agriculture, why is the mobile app component so heavily prioritized in these solutions?
Well, it goes back to what we were saying about the Australian workforce. Work doesn't just happen at a desk in a Sydney office. It happens out in the field.
Right, in the cabin of a tractor or a warehouse or a regional clinic.
Exactly. You have to push the software to the absolute edge of the network. Mobile solutions empower those field teams with on-the-go access and real-time insights.
Oh, I see. So if a driver for One School Global hits a delay, the tablet app updates the central server instantly.
Yes, and then the admin sees it on their console, and the parent gets a push notification a second later. That synchronized real-time connectivity is the whole point of modernization.
Okay, so we've classified the pain, defined the problem, and specified the technical answer. Now we hit step 4, deciding what is right. And I know this is the phase that keeps executives awake at night.
Oh, without a doubt. Making the strategic decision to actually pull the trigger on a custom build is terrifying, especially when you have battle scars from previous vendor lock-in.
Right, the fear of investing millions into a proprietary ecosystem and then 5 years later, the vendor just triples their licensing fees.
Because you don't actually own your own data architecture. It's a profound fear.
So how do you make the right decision when the stakes are that high?
Well, deciding what is right means demanding a transparent, phased approach. It means making sure the solution is future-proof, avoids vendor lock-in, and aligns with strict regional regulations.
Like the OSubscribe project from Monash Health.
Yes, perfect example. They had a previously failed project with a different vendor, and they were dealing with high-volume, highly confidential healthcare data.
Which is an absolute minefield. I mean,
Yeah.
healthcare data isn't just a spreadsheet of emails.
No, it's incredibly complex. C9 partnered with them and delivered a reliable triage and referral system that relied heavily on HL7 integrations.
And for those who don't know, HL7 is basically a set of strict international standards for transferring clinical data, right?
Right, and parsing HL7 is technically brutal because of its nested, complex formats.
It's like a highly rigid universal translator for healthcare systems.
Exactly, so getting that architecture right meant the difference between seamless patient care and a catastrophic compliance breach.
Wow. And then there's the Avo data case study for Avocados Australia. They needed an industry-wide tracking system, but they were sitting on incredibly fragile legacy data.
Right, so the right decision there wasn't just to dump the old data, it was to build a modern web solution that safely migrated it.
How does building a new interface actually fix the fragility of old data, though?
By decoupling it. They created a robust, isolated database for the historical records and put a secure API layer between that and a completely clean user interface for field reporting.
Oh, nice. So they protected the old records while improving the national supply chain visibility.
Exactly. Now they can track avocados from the farm to the market without risking database corruption.
That's brilliant. And we also have to spotlight StormRoad. They're a SaaS medical education platform. And the sources note they specifically chose to use a tool called 3.js.
This is such a great example of specifying the tech to match the problem. StormRoad provides interactive 3D anatomical models for medical professionals on mobile devices.
And normally, rendering heavy 3D assets on a traditional server and streaming it to a phone, the latency would just make it unusable, right?
They're completely unusable, which is why 3.js is revolutionary here. It allows the heavy lifting of the 3D rendering to happen client-side.
Meaning right in the user's mobile browser.
Yes, utilizing the phone's own graphics processor. They decided that the right experience required interactive models that ran smoothly without server lag. You simply cannot buy that in a generic software package.
Right. Okay, so the architecture is specified, the strategic decisions are locked in. But all of that brings us to step 5, carrying out the decision. Because a brilliant technical blueprint is completely useless if the execution bungles and your staff just refuses to use the software.
Exactly. Execution is where the rubber meets the road. And this is where C9's proven execution playbook comes in: scoping, approval, development, testing, acceptance, and ongoing support.
And the secret weapon there seems to be client collaboration really early on.
Yes. If you lock developers in a dark room for 8 months, they're going to build features that look great on a whiteboard, but fail miserably in the real world.
You have to earn trust through iterative transparency.
Right. Look at the M-in-Connect case study for Healthy Tasmania. They needed a SaaS platform to manage community health events. The execution was flawless because C9 prioritized early user testing with the actual health instructors out in the field.
Yeah, the mechanics of what they built were so elegant. Instead of instructors fumbling with paper clipboards while trying to run a fitness class, they utilized QR code scanning.
Participants just scan a QR code on the instructor's device. It's quick, it's frictionless, and the attendance data flows instantly to the central database.
And because the instructors were consulted early and saw how it made their jobs easier, the adoption rate was huge.
Exactly. And the rapid ROI outcomes from executing these solutions properly are just staggering. Remember the SES portal, the electrical company drowning in manual paperwork?
Yeah, the ones who were flying blind.
Right. Once their custom portal was carried out, they reduced processing time from hours down to literal seconds.
Hours to seconds. I mean, that's not just an improvement, that's an operational transformation.
It really is. We see the same thing with Tasmanian irrigation. They successfully replaced all those highly vulnerable spreadsheets with a secure water entitlements register featuring automated document generation.
Which completely removes the risk of a human typo altering a legally binding water entitlement.
Exactly. And Webster Limited, Australia's oldest major exporter, successfully replaced fragmented legacy systems to create a unified end-to-end production management system for their walnut and onion lines.
Wow. So from agriculture to healthcare, executing custom software is just reshaping these industries. But let me ask you about the long-term impact. Once these systems are actually carried out and the dust settles, what happens to the business's competitive edge?
What happens is a fundamental shift in their corporate posture. They move from playing defense to playing offense. When you're shackled by a leaky legacy system, your team is completely reactive.
All right, they're just fighting fires and chasing stale data,
Yeah.
managing the disaster.
Exactly. But once an effective custom solution is in place, those manual errors just evaporate. The business transitions to making proactive data-driven decisions that directly drive revenue growth. And they can scale without just adding more admin headcount.
Which is a massive competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
So, to summarize all of this for everyone listening,
Mhm.
making an effective technology decision is a journey. It starts by honestly classifying the pain of your legacy systems and defining those uniquely Australian operational bottlenecks.
Right. And then specifying the right custom frameworks like .NET and React, deciding on secure paths that avoid vendor lock-in, and finally, flawlessly carrying out phased deployments with your field teams.
It's how you stop bailing water and finally build a ship that can navigate the future.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. We started by talking about how Australian businesses spend up to 80% of their IT budget just maintaining outdated systems.
It's a huge drain.
It is. So think about your own industry right now. What massive game-changing innovations are you completely missing out on simply because your best people are too busy maintaining the past?
That is a very sobering question. Every dollar spent patching a broken system is stolen from your future growth.
Absolutely. Implementing the right custom software positions your business for genuine scalability and innovation. So if you're ready to stop managing the past and start engineering the future, you need to reach out to C9 Australia's leading custom software, apps integration, and database developer company.
Yes.
You can visit them right now at www.toetsy.c9.com/steptoide.au for a no-obligation consultation to start your own success story.
Because the difference between struggling and scaling is simply having the right partner.
Perfectly said. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Don't forget to hit that follow button for the C9 podcast show so you never miss an insight. And please share this with any fellow Australian executives or business owners who could benefit from this knowledge.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time, keep looking forward.